Hello everyone, it is Derek with the Valley Center Tech team, and in this video I'm going to give a three-part walkthrough to Google Meet. In part one, we'll talk about how to create a Google Meet link. In part two, we'll talk about facilitating a Google Meet. And in part three, we'll talk about wrapping up and closing a Google Meet. This can be especially useful if you are transitioning to Zoom and have never used Google Meet before. I hope you find it enjoyable, and let's dive in. Okay, so while there are a number of options for setting up Google Meets, by far the most preferred method is through Google Classroom. There are a few key benefits that have come with the latest update, the first of which is that teachers and co-teachers are now always the meeting hosts. Secondly, students will now be sent to a waiting room until a teacher is present in the meeting. That means no more students waiting for you when you arrive to the meet, which anybody who taught during the pandemic knows is a significant improvement over previous versions. And finally, hosts can now invite other participants outside of their class to join the meet. These attendees, such as parents for parent-teacher conferences, can now just simply type in their name, click Ask to Join, and the host will have the option to admit them or deny them upon entry. So, to set up your Google Meet link within Google Classroom, simply go to classroom.google.com and select your class. Here I'm going to take Derek's test classroom. And you'll now find Meet located as a small card in the sidebar of your class stream. If you've never set up a Meet link before, as I have not in this test class, just press Generate Link, and voila, you have a new classroom meeting link with all the built-in security features discussed earlier. To show or hide this Meet link from students, I'm just going to select this toggle and make my selection to visible or invisible to students. You can also click this drop-down next to the Meet ID to either reset the Meet link if you experience any issues with the previous link, or remove it altogether if you no longer need it. And finally, when you're ready to share Meet link with students and their families, just click Copy and paste the link in an email or your communication channel of choice. I'm going to click Save here. Now, for teachers who have used Google Meet in their classrooms in the past, you may see, I'm going to navigate over to my other test course that I've had a while ago. You may see that you now have this outdated link flag in your little sidebar. If you see this text as I have, you will definitely want to update this link in order to ensure that your meetings have the new security and sharing features that I mentioned earlier. Fortunately, updating is a breeze. Just click the vertical ellipsis menu, then Manage, and Upgrade Link. I'm going to upgrade all of my outdated links, click Upgrade, and again, voila, I now have updated links that will disallow students to join before me and which I can share with families outside of my class. Once I've set up my Meet link and shared it with whoever needs it, I'm ready to explore part two, facilitating a Meet. All right, so you have created your meeting link and shared it with those that need it, and now it is time to facilitate your meeting. So just moving left to right along the little control panel here, the first button I have is my microphone, so I can toggle that on or off to mute or unmute myself. Likewise, right next to that, I can do the same for my webcam. Moving right, I have the little CC box. If I turn this on, that is going to turn on closed captioning. Google has a really good closed captioning service that does an excellent job of capturing speech in real time and spitting it out in a more or less accurate way. Really helpful for students. They can turn that on or off for themselves. I will turn this off again because I don't know if you saw, but when you turn it on for the first time, I'll give it a second to catch up, I can choose my language. So right now I had it as Spanish Mexico. You'll notice that that wasn't the language showing up on the bottom. It was just the language that the student would be reading on their screen. So you choose this as an attendee for yourself. So it's not every language in the book, but you have French, German, Portuguese, and Spanish that students can choose for themselves what they want the words to see. Again, you might have seen it's not a perfect translation necessarily, but it's great for providing access, and students have the ability to turn that on or off. I can raise my hand. As the teacher, you might want to do this if you're facilitating a discussion, but in these other test groups I have on the side, I'm going to raise their hands, and you can see it builds a little hand-raising cue, and I can click that hand now in my side panel to lower these students' hands after I've addressed their question or concern. Moving right, the little square with the arrow is my present screen. So if I want to share my screen, I have a number of options. I'm actually going to turn closed captioning off. I didn't know it was still running. So pushing present, I've got a number of options. I can choose to present my entire screen. So that'll be one of my desktops. You can see all my fake meetings I have on screen 1. So I can click that screen if you have multiple monitors, or if you're just working with one monitor, you can click that screen and then push share if you want to share your entire desktop. So that's going to get, your bottom tray with all of your applications on it, your clock up at the top, things that might not typically be shared. If you need to show students how to navigate something on their computer, that's worthwhile to do. I can also click to share just a single window. So if I have multiple windows within Chrome or Safari, I can click to share those, or a tab. Tab is preferred by Google, and you'll notice that it defaults to sharing the tab audio. So if you want to share a YouTube video with a student or something like that, the individual tab is usually ideal. Continuing on, I have the vertical ellipsis menu. If I select that, I've got a lot of options. I can start a whiteboard. So if you have ever used Google Jamboard, it plugs into the Jamboard service, and I can start a new Jamboard for my students to sort of whiteboard different ideas that we have as a class. I'll leave that be for now. You can also open up, if you have existing Jamboards, you can choose those from your drive and open up existing Jamboards. I can record my meeting, so just push that. It'll notify all your attendees that you are going to start your recording. You see that I have the start recording button here, and I will make sure that everyone is ready and understanding that the meeting is now being recorded. This automatically saves all of your meeting recordings into a special folder on your Google Drive called Meet Recordings. So everything that you record just goes there automatically. This is another great substitute for like a video casting application where you can record a lesson, and even if there's no students in your Meet, you can use it to record a presentation or a lesson and teach them asynchronously. I'll stop the recording for now. Moving along, I can change the layout. So Google has an automatic layout that I actually prefer. You can choose between a tiled view, a spotlight view, which will spotlight the main speaker, a sidebar, which sort of combines those two, and we'll put smaller tiles on the side that here you can see with a larger spotlight in the middle. I prefer to leave the auto setting on, but I do like to change the tiles all the way up to the maximum to 49. If you ever have a long or a large meet, you want to be able to see everybody even if they show up pretty small. So I usually set the layout to auto, but change that tile all the way up to 49. And continuing to move down, I can go full screen, apply visual effects. So if you want a custom background, or you can blur your background if you like that. Continuing on, I have options to use my phone for audio, and then just troubleshooting. I can report a problem or any abuse that I see to Google directly. In the bottom, I have my settings gear. So this is where if you have multiple microphones, you can see I have a USB microphone that I'm using right now. So on the audio tab, you can configure your different audio settings if you want to use a different microphone. Or if you have multiple webcams, you can choose those. I don't have any other plugged in, so it's just trying to find the one on my laptop right now. I will notice back on the audio tab, it has a noise cancellation feature that is turned on by default. I would recommend leaving this on. It's a really good option that filters out some of the noise that isn't speech from your microphone and makes things a little more easily understood. I'll close my effects window. So that's really the bottom tray. Continuing on, I've got my meeting information. So this is more now interacting with the meeting itself. I can click that information tab to copy that information of the meeting. So if you click this little copy button, that's going to copy the meeting link and the phone number for any parents or students that need to dial in and how they will join that. So I can copy that info in one push of a button, paste it into an email or to a calendar invite or something like that, and now everyone will have access. You can see the Jamboard was attached there that I had opened. My participants information is just going to show everybody that is participating. I don't have anybody unmuted right now because if I did, there would be a crazy echo. But if their mics were on, I can mute them. So if a student doesn't know that their microphone is on and they can be crinkling chips or something like that, that can be pretty distracting. So you can force mute them. You can't unmute somebody, just for basic privacy reasons, but if they are making a noise, that's kind of disturbing the meet, you can force mute them. You can pin anybody's screen. So if I want to pin test student 3, I can click the vertical ellipsis and pin them to my screen, and now they'll take up a more predominant space on that screen if I want to see what something they're trying to show me or what they're presenting. On any of these under the ellipsis, you can also remove. So if the student's just acting up and I've tried to intervene and they're just not responding, you can forcefully remove a student and fill out an abuse. It'll automatically fill out an abuse form for you, or give you the option, and you can say, oh, they are, whatever, just spam or unwanted content, and here's my issue, and report them. And now that student's removed from this meeting. If you can see, if it's an emergency, it recommends contacting authorities or anything like that. But usually it's more behavior driven. You can also add as a co-host now. So this is a new feature Google Meet has added where you can select different people to be a co-host in your meeting, which gives them more control to respond to chats or things like that on their own. Host controls here up at the top. This is where I can set if I want to even allow people to chat. So right now it is letting everybody share their screen. If I want, I can toggle that off, and I can also toggle off everybody chatting or just turn one of those two on. So depending upon, your grade level, you might get different mileage or use out of that, but you can choose if you let everyone share their screen or chat or what have you. Whoops, and I close the participant window. And that was really all of the main ones. If I added new people, again, if they're getting this through Google Classroom, they already have access to the link. But if you did need to add additional people, you can push that button and type in an email address, and it'll pick up emails within our directory. Or you can mute everybody in one go and just push that button on the mute. So next to participants, I have the chat pane. So this is just a very typical chat board. You can see it creates messages automatically. So when I created that Jamboard, it created a chat automatically with the link to that Jamboard. But I can also just type my own chat and respond to student questions there. And then this little activities icon, the square, the rectangle, and the circle, if you click on that, you have a number of other options. So recording and whiteboarding, we've shown where to access that otherwise, but you do have the ability to access those here. But here I can send students into breakout rooms. So because our district is paying for the Google Workspace for Education Plus, we have the ability to break out students into breakout rooms. So I can set up breakout rooms. I'm going to say just 2 rooms. You can choose whether to set a timer or not. I will say end the breakout after a set amount of time. Whoops. And let's set just 5-minute breakout rooms for now. I'll push OK. So I've got a timer turned on for these. And it's lagging a little bit because I have a number of fake students on. You can shuffle to kind of randomize the order. Or you can just click and drag. When I set the 2 rooms, it created 2 spaces. If I say 3 breakout rooms, it's going to create a 3rd space, and you can drag students to kind of configure them. Or I will go back to 2 and click shuffle, and it'll randomize it for me. You do want to establish co-hosts before you do this, because once they're in a breakout room, you can't make them a co-host within that. And then when you're ready, just click open rooms. And I'll actually do that to show what that looks like. So now they're in their rooms. I can join any one of those. So those students haven't joined their breakout rooms yet. They would need to do that through their activities pane. So I'm going to do that for them right now on the little side screens that I have open. And I'll leave one in the main call with me. So if I want to see what's happening in breakout room 1, all I have to do as the facilitator is click join. And now I'm joining that breakout room with that test student that I created. When I'm ready to leave this breakout room and maybe join another, I can either just leave this one by clicking the leave button or join 2 directly, or I can close all rooms for everybody and push them back into the main meeting with me. Oops. So I'll close all rooms now and return to the main call. So that's Breakout Rooms. I'm back in the main call. I'm back on the Activities tab. Let me push the back arrow. I can set up polls. So if I want to start a poll, what is your favorite color? And let's add another option for green. I can either save it if I want to create my polls in advance and sort of launch them one at a time, if you want to do a little prep before your meeting, or I can just launch that poll immediately, and now students will be able to respond to that poll, and we'll see live data come in as they do that. And then finally, I have Q&A, so a way for students to ask questions apart from the chat. Q&A is similar to the chat, but it just is a more structured format. So when a student asks a question, if you have a lot of students or family members, that can get flooded. Your chat pane can get flooded pretty easily. So having a dedicated Q&A where they can go to ask questions keeps them organized for you. And then really the last thing in Meets is this host control. So that little shield on the far bottom right, if you click that, again, that's just another way to access who can share their screen or send chat messages. And then host management, this allows you to, gives you the full rights to admit or remove others, mute each other, and so on if you have co-hosts that you want to add and give them different host controls themselves. So that's just a quick tour, but hopefully it's a little bit of a grounding of what Meet looks like and its functionality. Again, the thing that I recommend, just like I have right now, nobody ever wants their first Meet to be in front of students or parents, right? So the best way to get truly comfortable is just by practicing this, and there's nothing stopping you from starting a Meet on your own. So probably the fastest way, if you don't want to use your classroom link, you can just go to meet.google.com, and then select New Meeting, and then create an instant meeting. So that puts me into a meeting ID into an individual meeting ID with just myself. And if you just take this link at the top and open up an incognito window, so you can do that by hitting if you're on an Apple, you can hit Command, Shift, and N, and that'll open up a private window. And you can just paste that meeting link and join and see what a test student looks like. That's how I got all of those test students in this meeting, and you can kind of go back and forth between your views and resize your windows as you need to sort of experience a Meet from the presenter point of view and from an attendee's point of view. So that's really the best way. Obviously, another way is just to partner with a teacher and spend 30 minutes and really take turns being the host and the attendee and get to know the landscape a little bit. But very similar to other meeting applications. If you're familiar with Zoom, you'll see that the functionality is very similar, but there are some nuances, particularly how to set up breakout rooms and polls and Q&A under this little activities tab. So hopefully that's a helpful initiation. And once you're comfortable, it's time to move on to the finale of our little mini series on how to end a Google Meet. Okay, so our last installment here is wrapping up a Google Meet. So fortunately, closing a Google Meet is incredibly easy. You just come down to this little phone tab or button and say leave call. I now have the option in previous versions. You may have noticed that you could leave a call, but students could sort of linger behind and stay in that call long after you. Well, Google has corrected that error and gives you the option to either just leave the call yourself if you need to go, or if you're the host, you can end the call for everybody. Notice that it says you can turn off quick access to limit who can join this call after you leave, plus all future instances of this call. So we do not want quick access on if I'm trying to end this meeting and not allow students who maybe had to leave really fast but want to be able to rejoin. If I don't want people to rejoin immediately, turn quick access off and say end the call, and that will end the call for everybody. So you can see right now I get a little confirmation that I've ended the meeting for everybody. All of my test students were kicked out of the meeting automatically. Another added feature is if you have a meeting with at least 5 attendees, because we're on the Education Plus plan, we will receive automatic attendance reports. So shortly, not immediately after the meeting, but shortly after the meeting, you will receive an email that looks sort of like this. It'll say meeting data from, and then whatever the name of your meeting was, and it'll have a CSV file attached to that. You can open that CSV file in Google Sheets, and you will now have meeting data on everybody who attended. So this is only for members of Workspace for Education Plus, which Valley Center Palma is a member of, and it has to be for meetings with at least 5 attendees. But as long as you have 5 attendees, you'll get an email shortly after your meeting with all of this information. I've blacked out the names and email addresses just for privacy, but you'll have your student names, their email addresses, how long they were in the meeting, and when they joined and when they left. So a great way to monitor attendance and track student engagement along the way. This email will always come from meetings-no-reply@google.com. So if you anticipate giving a lot of Google Meetings, it might be worth creating an email filter for this. The easiest way to do that I know is while you're on that message in Gmail, come over to the vertical ellipsis for that message, for that email, and say filter messages like these. When I click that, it recognizes, what do you mean like these? Well, I mean from emails with the from field being meetings-no-reply@google.com. So I can do that. If you want to add other parameters, you can. All of these will have an attachment. So if you want to select that, that's fine. But really, this is enough probably to capture the filter you want. Then just click Create Filter. And you can choose the actions that you want. I usually, for automated processes like this, I like to skip the inbox, add a label. If you have a label for these, that's fine. You can select it. If not, you can create a new one. And this would be maybe Google Meet attendance reports. You can choose, if you have a nested structure, you can nest that under a parent label if you want, but that's good enough for me. I will create that, and you'll notice that it has other conversations that it's recognizing that match this rule, so I can check this box to create that filter. And now on the left-hand side, I've got this Google Meet attendance reports filter that has my email inside of it. So a little quick filter there is really helpful, but a great way to just get extra data after the meeting, hold students accountable and see who's attended and who was engaged and who wasn't. And there we have it. So that's closing a meeting, and that's the last installment of our little 3-part mini series. I hope it was helpful. I know making the transition from another meeting service like Zoom and can be intimidating, but really just practice it a little bit. Make sure that the first time you do it is alone with test students or with a colleague and not in front of, real students or adults, and that'll just lower, the anxiety of the moment. And we're always here to help, and hope this was helpful, and we'll see you around, and have a great day.